Hello everybody, welcome to Soapbox Slam, where I get on my soapbox and I talk about the things that I see going on. So in continuing in good faith with the previous part series that I have been posting, this post will be an examination of some of the pharmaceutical industries and their profits. As you may or may not know, I have been making posts. My last 5 posts have presented the different corporate industries in America, what their profits are, what their CEOs are paid, what their senior managements are paid, and then what their hourly workers are paid. In comparison to what the national average for rent is for a single person in a 1-bedroom apartment, what the national average expense is to have a 1-bedroom apartment, and what those numbers are. And by presenting this information, I'm trying to show you all that it is not economically possible for a single individual, based on the hourly wages that are paid in the United States of America, to put a single 1-bedroom roof over their head, let alone co-sign for a Republican agenda that suggests that we should have a nuclear family, because one cannot afford a nuclear family on an hourly wage at all, let alone put a 1-bedroom apartment over their head. And one cannot afford anything under the current platform of the Republican Party, which includes giving more tax breaks to corporations that have already reaped insane profits pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and even during the pandemic. I also am contending in these previous posts and this post, it is my argument that even though I may look like a Democrat, I am not a Democrat. Part of my solution to the problems that we have, I see 3 major problems that need to be addressed when it comes to corporation and the United States of America and the working class. There are several problems that need to be addressed, but I think the most egregious problems and the quickest fix to these problems have to deal with taxing the corporations insanely, and taxing the wealthy rich insanely, and raising the taxes and making a stipulation that once they have moved the wages of working class, the hourly wages of people, to a living wage with disposable income, and there is a specific number for that. Once that has been moved to that point where you are paying the working wage, a living wage with disposable income, then and only then would the tax relief occur upon corporation and the wealthy in this country. Because since Ronald Reagan in the 80s, we have been told trickle-down economics is what would make which would trickle down to the working class people, and it has not. All trickle-down economics has done in creating these tax breaks for the wealthy, all it has done, and I would say tax breaks and bailouts for the wealthy, all it has done is create huge income disparities and inequity in American society, thus stealing prosperity in America and destroying the middle class in America. So that is what the previous posts discuss, and that is what this post is aimed to discuss. The particular industry that I have examined here is the pharmaceutical industry. And again, all the information may be redundant, and it is, again, will be redundant, as I've done this research through primary and secondary sources, that being the annual reports, Forbes and Fortune magazine, Indeed, to find out what they actually hire people at, and the sorts. So these are the kind of primary and secondary sources that I have used to collect this data and information to present to you. And these are just the realities. Also the Department of Labor statistics and the sorts. So that's where I'm gathering the information to present to you. And I challenge you to kind of hold your tongue, especially as Republicans and Democrats. Hold your tongue and evaluate. The three main problems that have caused all this, number one, is the issues of taxation and the price grab and money gouge that has occurred. But also, I contend and I argue through these posts that the pandemic inflation and inflation rate that has occurred was actually a ruse. It is my argument and contention that we as American consumers, especially the middle and working and lower class, have been rooked and rused and convinced that we needed the inflation rate and we needed inflation to occur in order to get us out of the pandemic. I mean, we even have these super brilliant minds from Harvard and everything else regurgitating, and it's pure regurgitation because they have, before they spoke, all they have done is listen to other people regurgitate the same information and have not challenged or questioned the reality of what they're being told. And so when these people who I think are unintelligible, even though they went to Harvard and they went to Yale and they went to these super schools, and they sit there and say inflation has gone down. No, the inflation rate may have gone down, but inflation has not gone down, nor have we experienced deflation, which is the fact that these prices have remained where they are, and that is what's choking out prosperity and choking out the middle class. So just because you think that oh well, they're not raising the prices and inflation isn't rising anymore, which is a false statement. Inflation will always and is always going to rise. However, the inflation rate isn't rising anymore, and the inflation rate, that being which the entire industries that exist, every sector of American commerce, that being commodities, goods, and services sold, bought, and traded for, prices increasing. That is an inflation rate. The entire society of goods, commodities, and services increasing. That's an inflation rate. Inflation is one specific industry rising in price. That's inflation. However, many so-called brilliant minds I mean, I'm just a dumb nigga, but you know, I can figure this part out. And all these people regurgitating all this stuff, misleading the public is unintelligible and rather lazy in itself. But it is my argument and my contention that the inflation rate never even needed to occur. And as we look at these numbers, especially when we look at the numbers over the 10 years, you tend to question how it is that if inflation needed to occur, then how it is that profits tripled and doubled post-pandemic and during the pandemic. Because if inflation is a compensation for the rise in cost in goods and services, the rise of production or the rise of the operation for goods and services, then you would not see tripling and doubling of profits. You would see maybe profit gains based on more units sold. You might see profit gains, but those profit gains would not be triple and double profits. They would be maybe $100 million more, or maybe $200 million more, maybe even $50 million more. Truly, it's going to be based on number of units sold, not less units sold, but extreme profit gains. And that is what has occurred. I do not lie. That is what has occurred over these pandemic, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And it's my argument that there was an assertive effort, not just by corporations, but by your lovely Democrat leaders. And I place blame equally across the board, Democrats and Republicans, but the Democrats were in power and they rused this. They designed this specifically. And just to put out there, the purpose for the design and the elected leaders, Republican and Democrat, because both parties in the House and the Senate had to vote to approve it. Both parties approved of this inflation rate occurring. And the purpose and motive behind that is you collect more money on taxing. The question here is, do you collect more money on taxing $3 or do you collect more money on taxing $10? So having the prices of goods, services, and commodities go from $3 to $10 creates more tax revenue for all governments, local, municipal, state, federal, it creates more tax revenue. And I guarantee you there were many states and cities and municipalities across the nation that were having budget shortfalls. And my issue with the Democrats is, instead of working within their budgets to embrace all of their social programs, which I don't care about the social problems. If you want to focus on social problems and that's what the community demands, that's fine. But what is not acceptable is, which I bring up, is the third issue and why we're in this trouble. I do not approve of the Democratic Party and philosophy to tax and spend and inflate the process of the prices of goods and services and commodities so that you can increase your budgets to make up the budget shortfalls for all the spending that you've done. I don't agree with that. You must work within your budgets, period. You tell people to work within your budgets, but the corporations and governments do not work within their budgets, and they just go and borrow money from the feds, which is why we're in this problem. That's my third issue, my third identification problem in all of this mess that we're in. And that is the process of the United States government and everybody else borrowing money from the feds. Borrowing money from the feds, financing and borrowing money, the banking institutes, is the third culprit into why we are in the trouble that we are in today, and how that is destroying the middle class and prosperity among working and middle class people. And this is real. I have no intention of manipulating and everything else. This is just what my dumb nigger brain can come up with. I realize I'm just a dumb nigger, but the very basics do not add up. Now, you can add all those brilliant minds who have gone to Harvard and all those brilliant minds who are way more sophisticated than me. I'm just a working class dumb nigger. I mean, but I'm smart enough to stick to the basics and the fundamentals. You know, all those brilliant minds, remember, all those brilliant minds that you want to trust, they're the ones who created the D2 derivatives and the subprime derivatives that destroyed the government in 2008. Those are the brilliant minds. So let them explain more. What I can tell you is whatever my dumb nigger brain read in Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, and whatever my dumb nigger brain can come up when I read annual reports and write down all the information to report to you guys. I'm at a glass ceiling because I'm just a dumb nigger. But I do present to you the facts and research that I have come up with that dispute and debunk every step of the way what we are being told. And sometimes when you simplify everything to just the simplistic truth and basic economic principles, there is no explanation for the results that we have. So here we go. Like I said, this is a continuation. I did 5 other ones before. The previous ones I did and it's the same principle, same format. I did the automobile industry. And my conclusion on the automobile industry is the exact same. And I would add that I will no longer buy. And one of the other things that take a lot of work from all American citizens is stop buying the American products, especially the American automobiles. When American automobiles pay their CEOs $36 million on average, and then the Toyota and foreign companies only pay their CEOs $3 million. And these are facts. Why do I continue to endure the egregious price hikes that occur with the American automobiles when all they're doing is funneling the majority of that money to their CEOs, and they refuse to give living wages to the very entry-level people there? And I'm not talking about the people at the UAW who also want bigger pieces of the pie and are entitled to bigger pieces of the pie, because the fact of the matter is, why does I will also contend with all of this, there is no CEO, not one out there. Now, I am going to talk about the drug industry, and there might be some exceptions to this statement when I say this, but there isn't a CEO out there, not one, that is bringing new product to market, not one that has created a whole new division, not one that has built a car from the ground up, and created the business from the ground up. There's not a Henry Ford out there. Ford already exists. If anyone did not earn anything, it's the CEOs of corporations today. The majority of them. Now, Steve Jobs earned every penny of it. He brought new product to market. He brought new technology to market. He brought new marketing skills. He deserved every penny that he was paid, and then some. But Apple has long been in business and existed and has long been extremely profitable. And the new CEO of Apple does not deserve it, because all CEOs today do is steer the ship. And at this point with corporations, the working class deserves, the people who are maintaining the ship deserve the piece of the pie at that point. And every corporation that exists out there today at this point are, the reward belongs to the working class, period, at this point. It's not a new product. For example, Bill Gates is bringing, and I support this wholeheartedly, and I'll do another post on it very soon. I don't support the renewable solar, wind energy and everything else. I don't support it. When you start to realize what it takes, and I work in the industry, I'm in construction, I work in the industry, I know what it's taking to build all this. I know how many trees and farmland is knocked down to put in these huge solar farms and these huge wind farms. If we are trying to minimize carbon and reduce the carbon footprint, the number one way to do that is to plant more plants. Why are we knocking down huge, vast acres of land, thousands of acres of land to put in this solar stuff where there's no plants anymore? Solar farm versus plants. What's going to do better for the for the environment? It's the plants. But you're going to knock down the plants to put in more solar farms because of renewable energy? Here, the answer to this is fucking nuclear. It's nuclear energy. And we have the technology, and we can continue the technology to continue with that. I work in the oil and gas industry a lot, and I'm a big supporter of natural gas. I'm also a very clean way and very, very, very low carbon footprint when you burn natural gas, right? Very, very low. But zero emission is nuclear. What a wonderful way, if you are such a green thumper, what a wonderful way to co-sign for your green agenda than to co-sign for nuclear and natural gas, and then have the most tremendous push to replant the earth. That's your answer. That is your real answer. Vertical building, nuclear energy, and natural gas energy while replanting the earth. That is your answer to the green. Not knocking down tons of natural ways to create more oxygen and take out carbon through plants, because we're knocking down a shitload of plants, putting in all these solar farms and wind farms, not to mention what we mined out of the ground to build the panels for solar and build the panels for the fans and the blades of the wind farms. Hello? You people are not thinking this through. But I'm not on my soapbox to talk about that. I'm on my soapbox to talk about the pharmaceutical industry and the profits that they have raped. I talked about the format is the same. I talked about the automobile industry. I talked about the food production industry, the food distribution warehouse industry, the gasoline industry, the banking industry, and now I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry. Okay. Before we get into the numbers on the pharmaceutical industry, let me just say to you that the national government, the Department of Labor puts out that the national poverty level, this is laughable and a joke, that the national poverty level is $15,000. I mean, that is laughable. The national poverty level being $15,000. That is unbelievably laughable, because what makes that laughable is the national average for a one-bedroom apartment for a single individual, and that's $15,000 for a single individual as well. But for a single individual, a one-bedroom apartment, the average cost is $1,539. That means yearly, the cost of an apartment is like $18,000, $18,432. So that alone, just to have an apartment over your head, that's not even turning the apartment on and operating the apartment. Just to get an apartment, you have to have $18,000, but the poverty level is $15,000. You are still poor if you can't make more than $18,000 and put an apartment over your head. But that's not including the expenses to run the apartment, because the national average for the expenses to run an apartment is a grand total. Seriously. And this is bare minimums, no disposable income. This is just the bare minimums of what it takes to put an apartment over your head. It does not include medical insurance or prescriptions. It does not include haircuts. It does not include extra money to maintenance a vehicle or repair a vehicle. It's just paycheck to paycheck just to have a roof over your head, shower, shit, shave, feed yourself, and go to work again the next day. That number is $3,266 a month for the year. It's $39,201 for a year. That's basically $40,000 a year. That's basically every month a person needs to make $3,500 a month, and that's $39,000 a year. Yet the national poverty level is half of what it, I mean, it's almost a third of what it takes just to put a roof over your head and turn that on. Yet the national government says the poverty level is $15,000. Yet for a single individual, just to put a roof over their head and turn on that roof, it's $40,000. So who's poor here? Where's real poor? Because to me, the person who can just put a roof over your head and everything else is fucking poor. They have no disposable income. They're truly living paycheck to paycheck, and it's just to put a roof over their head and go to work, and that's all that they're doing. And we encourage people to do this. I mean, if the younger generation is forced to do that, or any generation is forced to do that under these constraints, they must live with an adult, a parent in your parent's basement, a sister, a brother. They must be on OnlyFans or dancing on a pole. They have to. Because there's no disposable income in these numbers. There's no way, even starting out, there's no way one can start out in life behind the 8 ball. Period. And this is perpetually behind the 8 ball. Yet the poverty level is $15,000. Yet for a single individual to just put a roof over their head and turn it on, based on national averages, has to make $40,000 a year. But the average person in the United States of America makes $15 or less. That's actually $31,000 a year. $15 times 40 hours is $600 a week, times 52 weeks, that's $31,000 a year before taxes. Yet in order, based on the national averages for an apartment, one must pay $1,539. The average to just turn on an apartment, no disposable income, is $40,000 a year. At $15 an hour, you only make $31,000 a year. You are still $10,000, and this is before taxes. You are basically still $10,000 short of ever getting an apartment on your own. That is the reality. These are the numbers. Okay? Hourly wage times 40 hours a week equals weekly pay. Weekly pay times 52 weeks in a year, that's your gross. That's your gross. That means taxes are not taken out. So whatever that number is, you got to take taxes out. The national average for rent is $1,536. It varies based on location. In Chicago, it's higher. It's $1,800. In New York City, it's $3,800. In Los Angeles, it's $2,100. In Dallas, it's $1,400. In Atlanta, it's $1,600. So based on the area that you live in, those numbers change. But in those numbers changing, the average salary in these places is still $15 an hour. This is not achievable. And yet you people want to give more corporations more tax breaks, rich people more tax breaks, and you still want a nuclear fucking family? Make that make sense. How the fuck can you build a nuclear family when you can't even put as a single person, a 1-bedroom roof over your head? So the only people who are desirable to make a nuclear family are senior management. Is that the position that the Republican Party is saying? Fuck all the young people. The only people, or fuck anybody else, the only people who are eligible to have a family are senior management people who make the 150 plus range. Is that the position of the Republican Party? Because that's what you're telling me when you make these arguments. And that's what you're telling me when you are a Republican saying that you support the Republican Party, that is what you believe. That all the other people who work in the world, unless you are mid-level senior management, part of the trades or anything else, if you are not in those industries, you do not deserve to have a family, and you do not deserve a living wage with disposable income. That's what you're saying. I can't co-sign for that. That doesn't make me a Democrat. I just can't co-sign for that for humanity. That does not make sense. And remember, once you wipe out all the poor people, whoever they're coming for next, it's you people in the middle class who do make under 150, which is happening now, where now these prices of things will go up to a point where they take all your money as well. And that's what's happening now. So if you don't stand up for your people, because you in the middle class who do make 150, senior management, mid-level, whatever else, those who make 150 to 200,000, you are not a part of the rich. I promise you that. You are not a part of the rich. You are not a part of the aristocracy. You will never be a part of their class. You will never aspire to that unless you develop something, build something from the ground up, and become a corporation and trade on the open market and grow that way. Then and only then, and even then, that's new money. That's not old money. So you still will be limited on what your input is on how society should be run. So keep that in mind. Okay? These are just national averages. Again, I didn't make these numbers up. I got these from the labor primary and secondary sources. Department of Labor statistics, annual reports from the companies themselves, and everything else. I've examined all of these companies, and it's the same formula that I'm presenting to you guys today. So let me get back to it. I've rambled on for 25 minutes before I gave you the numbers. Sorry that I made you listen to me ramble on before you got to the real numbers and what the profits are. But these are the profits of the pharmaceutical industry. Okay. Procter and Gamble in 2023 made $14.3 billion. I'm going to round it up to $14.4 billion because it's $14,371 million. Okay. And I'm just going to round that up to $14.4 billion. In 2022, $14.4 billion. In 2021, $14.1 billion. And now 2021 is coming out of the pandemic. 2020 is the middle of the pandemic. 2019 is the beginning of the pandemic. So in 2021, $14.1 billion. In 2020, $12 billion. So just from 2020 to 2021, they made $2 billion more. $2 billion. Yet inflation needed to occur. It needed to occur. Supply chains and all that stuff, it needed to occur. But why then in the pricing was the pricing such that you would make $2 billion more? You didn't sell more units. More units weren't sold. I promise you that. You can go and investigate that yourself. More units were not sold. Typically in economics and typically in supply and demand, the more units you sell, the more money you make. The way our economy and people have been running things and your wonderful CEOs and corporations, they're trying to get away with selling less units and making more money. And that's what's going on here. Okay? That means prices are set so egregious that they're able to double and triple profits, sell less units. And they call that brilliance. I call that robbery, and I call that pillaging. And when corporations do that, I think it is the responsibility of government to step in and create restitution and retribution by taxing the fuck out of them, because you're not going to prosecute them. Why? I don't know. But you're not going to prosecute them. They won't prosecute them. So make them fucking pay. Nonetheless, 2019, look at this jump. In 2019, the beginning of the pandemic, $3 billion. So from $3 billion in 2019 to 2020, they went from $3 billion to $12 billion. That's 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. That's 4 times profit. Procter and Gamble. Okay. Now I lumped in Procter and Gamble with the pharmaceutical industry, but Procter and Gamble was your Clorox bleach, your laundry detergent, your toilet paper. Those are all produced and put out, and they're the distributor of that kind of stuff. Okay, that's Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble has been around since the beginning of American society. It's one of the oldest Fortune 500 companies that exist. Procter and Gamble is the one that sponsored all the soap operas that used to be on television. That being All My Children, As the World Turns, One Life to Live, all of them. I mean, Young and Restless. Those were all funded by Procter and Gamble. I mean, Procter and Gamble is based out of Cincinnati. It's one of the wealthiest oldest corporations in this country, and they do a lot of household goods, household cleaning goods, and things like that. And I lump them in with the pharmaceutical industry because sterilization and cleaning and hygiene is a part of good human health, right? So that's why I put them with them. 2018, $9 billion. So 2018, $9 billion. 2017, $15 billion. 2016, $10 billion. 2015, $3 billion. So what we're seeing, especially with Procter & Gamble, is that they average somewhere around $10 billion. And through the pandemic and post-pandemic, they made $4 billion more than what their normal average is. $4 to $5 billion more than what the normal average is. And I'm basing the average based on what happened prior to pandemic, that being 2018, 17, 16, 15. Okay. The CEO of Procter & Gamble is a guy by the name of John Mollier. And he has a salary that he pays himself $21.8 million. The senior management at Procter & Gamble make anywhere between $120,000 a year to $170,000 a year. Okay, the average hourly worker makes $12 to $26 an hour. Now, let me just say with that range, okay, $12 an hour is less than $15 an hour. 15 times 40 is 600 a week. 600 times 52 weeks is $31,000 a year. Okay, that's the low end of somebody who works at Procter & Gamble. The high end is 26. $25 an hour times 40 hours a week is $1,000 a week. That's 52 weeks. That's $52,000 a year. Now, $52,000 a year, you might be like, hey, Sean, that's good. No, because remember, that's before taxes. The real take home, because taxes will be about $8,000 on that, $8,000 to $10,000. So the real take home for that is closer to $40,000 a year. 45. Let's call it 45 to be fair. That would be a $7,000 tax that the person has to pay on that. At $45,000 a year, on the high end of Procter & Gamble paying their highest people $26 an hour. Remember, for a single individual to put a roof over their head, the average expense for that, based on national averages, is $40,000 a year. So even at $26 an hour at Procter & Gamble, a single individual who works at Procter & Gamble making $26 an hour can barely get by, barely, on a one-bedroom apartment. Certainly the person who's making $12 an hour at Procter & Gamble can never get by. They make less than $31,000 a year. Yet they're a $14 billion company, $14 billion profit company. And year over year since 2015 have been a double-digit billion-dollar profitable company. You're telling me that you can't take $500 million and pay some people? The total number of employees worldwide, that's not just the United States. I'm more concerned with the United States. But worldwide, across the entire world, there's 108,000 employees at Procter & Gamble. That includes the CEO and senior management and working lower hourly wage working class people. Okay, that's Procter & Gamble. Johnson & Johnson. Okay, again, like Procter & Gamble, they do a lot of hygiene stuff. They also make prescriptions, but the majority of their work is, you know, human hygiene, human health, right? And that's why I put them in with the pharmaceutical industry. Johnson & Johnson made $35 billion in 2023. 2022, $17 billion. 2021, the end of the pandemic, $20 billion. 2020, $14 billion. 2019, $15 billion. 2018, $15 billion. 2017, $1 billion. But let me remind you, Johnson & Johnson was sold because of their talcum powders, their baby powder that people were using, men and women were using baby powder to, you know, stop themselves from sweating on hot days and stuff like that. And it was known to have carcinogens in it. And so they had a lawsuit that they lost and they had to pay out. So that's what happened in 2017. And even after their payout, they still were $1.3 billion. Prior to that, 2016, $16 billion, 2015, $15 billion, okay? So, again, prices jump in 2023, $35 billion, right? You know, they averaged around a $15 billion company. 2022, they if you just took 15 as the billion prior to the pandemic, they still made $3 billion more in 2022. They doubled from 2022 to 2023, where they went from 17 billion to 35 billion. But in 2021, they were at 20 billion. Now, all the subsequent years, they average around 15, 14, 15, 14, the subsequent or previous years. But remember that in those 15, 14 numbers, you're looking at a difference of 100 million one year, 200 million in 1 year, up and down, plus or minus. Now, if post-pandemic, they were still in the 15 billion, and just increasing and decreasing from pandemic and on post-pandemic, and it was just 100 million here, 200 million there, whatever else. Well, then that would say that inflation, the new prices that they set on things were justified, and they only set it to a fair market value. They let the market determine, real market determine the market value, and that's what the price was. And so number of units sold is what influenced the variances in price. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what happened with any corporation in the United States of America from pandemic and post-pandemic. That's not what happened at all. And that's why it's a ruse. That's why it's an assertive effort, not just by corporations, but also by politicians. And what pisses me off about the Democrats is they want to say and try and attack the corporations, but they co-signed for this. And the reason they co-signed for this, and the motive behind the co-sign, is the fact that all of these municipal, state, local, federal governments were able to make up their budget shortfalls, because you collect more tax revenue on something that is $10 than you do on something that is $3. And that's why they enabled this. I mean, we're talking more than 6 years of price gouging. You're telling me that no leader questioned this, had a Senate hearing about it? They all knew this was going on. There were no Senate hearings about this. I mean, you're hearing all this stuff in the papers now because the Democrats are turncoating. But I also contend the Democrats co-signed for this, which is why Joe Biden always knew it was going to be a soft landing, right? Now, I'm not letting the Republicans off the hook. Believe me, because the reason why wages are where they are, and the reason why you see these profits the way they are, is because the Republicans co-signed for this, and yet the Republicans turn around and tell you, build a nuclear family. Stop all your faggotry and all your feminism and all this other stuff. Stop all that and build a nuclear family. No wonder we have all the other shit going on when people are trying to find outlets when they can't make money for dignity and work and health. What the fuck are these people doing? Like, for real. But I'm just a dumb nigga. I'm just reporting all this stuff. You can believe what I'm reporting to you or not. I'm just trying to show you the information, okay? You can just take whatever information I want and tell me I'm just a dumb nigga, or you could take the information and run with it and come up with something better. Pfizer in 2023 made $2 billion. In 2022, $31 billion. In 2021, $21 billion. In 2020, $9 billion. In 2019, $16 billion. In 2018, $11 billion. $7 billion, $6 billion. Okay. Now, and 2017, I'm sorry, I missed that year. It's $21 billion. I will note, in 2015 and 2016, whether you look at this, you hear this post, and you see future posts where I do this, and you look at the past posts where I've done this. Keep in mind, when we talk about Donald Trump's presidency, okay, and Donald Trump's tax breaks, 2015 and 2016 are all the policies of Barack Obama. And Donald Trump gets a lot of credit for what Barack Obama did from 2008 to 2016. Keep in mind, any presidency takes over, the first 2 years of that new president's term are still the policies of the previous president's terms. And the last 2 years of a president's terms are the policies of that president's term. That's why presidents want 8 years, because we never really see what a president does unless he has 8 years. We have had 4 years of Trump, we have 4 years of Biden, and all 8 years have been disastrous. And whoever wins this election coming up, the first 2 years that we're going into, which would be 2020, 2025 and 2026, are still the policies of Joe Biden. And whoever this new president is, we won't see their policies until 26, 27, 28. Okay? But keep in mind, you see huge jumps in all of these years in 2015 and 2016. The first jump you see is in 2017, and that's when Donald Trump, a year after Donald Trump's presidency, or a year into Donald Trump's presidency, and his immediate tax cuts. And these corporations ran wild with that because there are huge jumps in their profits. Mind you, okay, that's Pfizer. Oh, I never told you. Johnson & Johnson, the CEO is Joaquin Duanto. He pays himself $16 million, $16.4 million. The average worker at Johnson & Johnson makes $18 to $24 an hour. Keep in mind, $20 an hour times 40 hours a week is $800 a week. 52 weeks, that's $41,000 a year before taxes. Takes taxes out, and it'll be somewhere around $37,000, $36,000 a year. Okay, that is the price range of $20 an hour. Okay, and at Johnson & Johnson, they pay their guys $18 to $25. Just so you know, $25 an hour at 40 hours a week is 1,000 hours a week. 52 weeks, that's $52,000 a year. Minus taxes, take away about anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 in taxes, and the real take home for that person at $52,000 a year, the real take home will be about $42,000 to $45,000 a year take home. Okay, the average single individual to put a roof over their head is $40,000 a year with all expenses. That's no disposable income, no money for insurance, no money for prescriptions, no money for spare money for taking care of your vehicle if it breaks down, or buying a haircut, or buying new clothes, or anything else. The bare minimum to just put a roof over your head and put the electricity on, the gas, all that other stuff, the bare minimum is $40,000 a year for a one-bedroom apartment based on the national averages. Okay, but yet that's what Johnson & Johnson. I just read off Pfizer. The CEO of Pfizer is Albert Boa. He pays himself $33 million a year. The average salary worker makes $11 to $27 an hour. The senior management makes anywhere between $75,000 to $222,000 a year. Pfizer has 88,000 employees. Johnson & Johnson has 140,000 employees worldwide, both of these companies. Okay, those are the numbers. Okay, keep that in mind. Those are the numbers. $40,000 a year to put a roof over your head. They only pay their employees, hourly workers, $11 to $27 an hour. Even what they pay, a single individual can never put a roof over their head and have any disposable income for anything else. Period. Certainly on the low end, but even on the high end of what they pay, an hourly worker still would never be able to put an individual roof over your head. Yet somehow the federal government calls the national poverty level $15,000 a year. The national poverty level is $40,000 a year. What it takes for a single individual to put a roof over their head and everything else. And they cannot do it on these salaries, period. The national poverty level is $40,000 a year, not 15. And these are the manipulations. And the fact that it really is 40,000 would mean that the majority of America, we are living in a third world country. That's the truth. Those are the real numbers. Merck in 2023, $377 million. However, in 2022, $14 billion. In 2021, $12 billion. In 2020, $4 billion. In 2019, $5 billion. In 2018, $6 billion. Now, in 2017, 2016, and 2015, listen to this. They went from $2 billion to $6 billion. 2016, $3 billion to $2 billion. In 2015, $4 billion to $3 billion. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, from 2015 to 2018, it's all around $2-3 billion, give or take 100 million, right? Then it jumps as soon as the pandemic hits. It jumps to $6 billion. And then going through 6 to 12 to 14. Now, this $377 million that they made in 2023, Merck had a lawsuit. They had to pay out. That's why they're at that profit margin right there. Also, keep in mind, Anytime a corporation has a net loss, they're able to write that net loss off in their taxes. They don't have to pay taxes for the next 3 years, and they receive a tax return based on what they paid the previous year in taxes. So, there's no reason to ever bail out a corporation, period, ever. Not just on principality, but on an economic, what we pay in taxes. If you go under, you go under. You can't turn your shit around if you don't have to pay taxes for 3 years and you get a tax return based on that amount of money. No, there should never be a freaking bailout. And don't get that twisted. Both Republicans and Democrats have given bailouts. In fact, the Republicans have given more bailouts than the Democrats have since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan bailed out the Chrysler. Ronald Reagan bailed out the airline industry. George Bush bailed out the automobile industry and the airline industry. And Barack Obama bailed out the airline industry and the automobile industry. And Donald Trump bailed out the people, and Joe Biden bailed out the people. So we've been borrowing money left and right from the feds, causing inflation to occur to bail out everybody else. We send money to Israel. We send money to Ukraine. We send money to Afghanistan. We send money, all this money we keep borrowing is why you have all this inflation shit going on. It's got to get made up somehow. We got to pay it back. So prices of goods and services go up so that these products can be taxed at a higher rate so that the governments can make up their shortfalls. This is facts. This is the reality of the situation. I shit you guys not. Merck CEO is a guy named Rob Davis. No relation. Maybe he is. He would never claim me because I'm just a dumb nigga. But regardless, he makes $20 million, and his hourly wage is $15. The hourly wage Rob Davis pays himself $20 million a year. The hourly worker at Merck makes $15 to $35 an hour, and senior management makes $140,000 to $235,000 a year. There are 72,000 employees worldwide at Merck. Now, I will tell you, the threshold that I have done in my numbers that I see, the threshold, the bare minimum that society should make is $35 an hour. That's $1,400 a week. That's 52 weeks a year. That's $1,400 a week. That's times 52 weeks. That's $72,000 a year. Take away the $12,000 in taxes, and that's about $60,000 a year. If you have a rent of $40,000, your rent for the year is going to be $40,000, and all your expenses, that leaves you a net of about $20,000 a year. That's a little over $2,000 a month to save for a house, to buy a vehicle, to maintenance anything, to take care of your house if you already own a house as a single home or single buyer, to actually build a fucking nuclear family. That's actually now doable. That's the threshold. It's $35 an hour. That's the minimum threshold that everybody in society should be making. Any job in America should be making, period. And that's really where it's at. I've got two more here that I'm going to do and make some closing comments. We've got Abbott Labs and Eli Lilly. I want to also point out to you that, people are starting to wake up to this, and the biggest race is with this AI. Because if they can get AI to replace human labor, which is what they already say about AI, then corporations will never, ever, ever have to pay for human labor. They can make all these kind of profits. The only kind of jobs will be available will be more highly skilled jobs, and to hell with everybody else. The entire deal with immigration and everything else is to replace the labor force, to bring in these people right now that'll actually fight amongst all of ourselves. We'll wipe each other out while the new shit's going on. And they bring in all the immigrants and everything else and all this so they can keep the wages down just long enough, standard of living and wages down just long enough before they can kick off AI. You got to think about it, guys. This is the reality of what's been going on. And that's the future of what's going to be. Because the more AI starts replacing, and the whole fast food industry is the first to go. And they can't wait. They, being corporation, cannot wait to get rid of it. The answer to that is stop going to fast food, full stop. Like, stop it now. Shut them down so that they are bankrupt before they can launch it. Because they're going to get rid of you as the working class. They will get rid of you and replace you with AI. Every interview that you talk about, every interview that they do, they already say it. It's writing is on the wall. If you want to get rid of AI and the idea of your jobs being gone, stop it right now. Don't buy there, don't go there, don't work there. Just full stop. That is boycotting, and it is effective, but it requires organization and harmony among the people. And they'll never allow, the reason why corporation does not want harmony among you, which is why they got us pitted against each other, white against black and American against immigrant and everything else. The reason why is as long as we're fighting among each other, we'll never see what's coming. And what's coming is the replacement, and the replacement is the robots. Abbott, $4 billion, 2022, $11 billion, 2021, $11 billion, 2020, $4.8 billion, 2019, $7 billion, 2018, $5, 2017, $5, 2016, $5, 2015, $5. Now, that's fairly consistent other than those years where you see the tremendous jump. I mean, it's a double, and that's coming right out of the pandemic. So they gouged, and then they went back to normal. Because they never had to raise prices and gouge. It's either they gouged or they actually had to sell more units, and that's coming in and out of the pandemic. My suspicion is they never really gouged. They just sold that many more units. They produced and sold that many more units to take care of the sick, which is why those profits are. When they didn't have to do that anymore, the profits went right back to where they were for the last 10 years. That makes sense. However, what does not make sense is you're a single-digit billion-dollar company. You're the CEO. You're Richard Gonzalez. You pay yourself $25.7 million, yet your hourly worker only makes $13 to $22 an hour. At $13 to $22 an hour, at $15 an hour, you only make $31,000 a year. At $20 an hour, you only make $41,000 a year. They do not pay anybody at Abbott Labs enough money on the hourly wage end. They don't pay anybody enough money to a single individual to put a roof over their head and occupy that roof, let alone have disposable income. Period. And worldwide, there are 1,114 employees worldwide at Abbott, and the senior management makes anywhere between $80,000 to $236,000 a year. So low end of senior management can put a roof over their head. Fuck all the hourly workers. Eli Lilly, $5 billion, 2023, 2022, $6 billion, 2021, $5 billion, 2020, $6 billion, 2019, $8 billion, 2018, $3 billion, and then $2 billion and $2 billion. So with Eli Lilly, it's fairly consistent. Their little spike of 5, 4, and 6, clearly through the pandemic, more units sold. Eli Lilly made money based off of more units sold because everything looks very consistent, and their numbers year over year over year, give or take $100 million. That is consistent. However, David Rick is the CEO of Eli Lilly. He pays himself $26.5 million, and the average hourly worker at Eli Lilly makes $14 to $28 an hour. Again, anybody who makes $14 to $28 an hour is only making $31,000 to $55,000 a year. Plus, they got to subtract taxes. After taxes, they're barely making $40,000 to $28,000 a year. The average, based on national average, for a single individual to put a roof over their head and turn on the roof with no disposable income is $40,000 a year. Nobody who works at Eli Lilly at an hourly wage can survive, even at Eli Lilly. The CEO, David Rick, I told her that there are about 43,000 employees worldwide at Eli Lilly. There's about 20,000 in the U.S. alone. Okay. That's just a quick look at all the pharmaceutical industries and the hygiene industry in America. Okay. I share this information with you because, again, it's not possible. And this is consistent with the entire industry. Whether we're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, whether we're talking about my previous posts, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's the banks, whether it's the gas companies, whether it's the food distribution warehouse, i.e. grocery store companies, national chains, whether it's the food production companies like General Mills or Post or Butterball or Oscar Mayer, or whether it's the automobile industry. It is the same. It is the same. The hourly workers cannot survive. And there are way more hourly workers in the United States of America than there are senior management, salary workers, and CEOs. What baffles me about all of this is, what's really baffling to me is and my solution, first of all, this to me proves that the inflation and rate never had to occur, because prices were not set, except for a couple companies that didn't gouge their prices. They actually sold more units and made more money. Prices were set to gouge American people. Why? I said this time and time again, our elected representatives are able to make up their budget shortcomings when they are able to tax $10 versus able to tax $3. That's why they would co-sign for it. The financing industry, the banks allow this to happen and falsely increase interest rates to encourage this to happen. And banks and financings are culpable to this problem. When you only pay your hourly teller and all your hourly people in all of these industries across the board, you're only paying your hourly workers less than what the national averages are for one to put a roof over their head. Based on national averages, $40,000. That's what the federal government puts out as national averages. The Department of Labor, Department of Statistics, that's what they put out as the national averages. All of my expenses for what it costs to have at $40,000, all those numbers come from the Department of Labor and their averages, what they say. So they know. They absolutely know. All these corporations, there isn't one of them that's paying the hourly worker the ability to survive. I don't understand. What baffles me is, why would you not give people at a minimum $75,000 a year? That brings in a higher income tax than what they're being made at $31,000 or $50,000 a year. If they're in a new tax bracket at $70,000 a year, they're paying way more to the national government in taxes. Why would you not do that? Why would you not encourage that? Especially if you're a Republican. Why would you not want that for the hourly worker? You can create a nuclear family that way. You can create more money in the tax pool that way. I don't understand how you can co-sign for more tax breaks when all of these companies are billion-dollar profits, and the years that they're not in the billions, it's because they fucking sold something and they got sued for it, or because they had to retool something. And remember, if they're not profitable for 1 year, they're still able to not have to pay taxes for the next 3 years, and they get a tax return based on what they paid in the previous years. It does not make sense, guys. And the numbers don't add up when they bounce and jump double and triple because of pandemic. And then post-pandemic, it does not add up. If your inflation is one to compensate for the values, what happened during pandemic and supply chains, then you wouldn't see doubling profits. You'd see a couple $100,000 more, $100 million more, but you would also see more units sold. And all of these different industries that I have revealed thus far, this is the 6th one that I've done, and I got more to come. I got tons more to do. The hotel industry, which hotel workers are striking right now. The hotel industry and the billion-dollar profits that they are, and yet they can't pay their hotel workers a living wage with disposable income. And yet when you go to the majority of these hotels, and maybe not the Hilton, and maybe not a lot of IHG members, and maybe not a lot of Marriotts, but all the other ones, they are shit. I live out of hotels because of the work I do. And what I have to pay as a hotel rate, and I've done a post about this before, what I have to pay as a hotel rate, the foul, almost unsanitary conditions of these hotels, and then the CEOs paying what they pay and the profits that they make, it's egregious. So tax the fuck out of them until they're willing to start paying people living wages with disposable income. When you start paying people living wages with disposable income, we'll agree to relieve all of the egregious taxes we're going to put on you. That's what I believe. Inflation rate is a ruse. The inflation rate was an incentive because you get more money off of taxing higher dollars than you do taxing lower dollars. And that has been what's been able to give governments, their budget shortfalls, fill in their budget shortfalls by taxing a higher amount. That's why they co-signed for it. I cannot support what they keep telling us about the inflation rate. And just because the inflation rate has gone down, meaning every industry across the board stopped raising the prices simultaneously, does not mean prices aren't going up. And we have not had deflation. Until we get deflation, not only do these numbers reveal how much people are behind and can't survive, but it also reveals why there's been such a high credit card use and how people have been trying to get by robbing Paul and borrowing and everywhere else to try and get through this. But deflation has not occurred. And it won't occur. We're stuck with this. That's the truth. That's the truth. And that's what I'm on my soapbox about. To give you guys this information and share with you why both political parties are wrong. And you are stronger as an independent, which force political parties to pander to your needs and pander for your vote than to be a blind Democrat or a blind Republican supporter. And right now, all of the blind Democrat supporters and all the blind Republican supporters are supporting a system that is anti-prosperity, anti-working class. I don't care what Kamala Harris says right now about what she wants to do in supporting the unions and supporting all this other stuff. I don't care what Joe Biden says about giving student loan debt relief and debt forgiveness. All of that is bullshit, because none of these people are willing to address the issue at the core, which to me means they know what's going on, they're culpable, and they don't want to fix the problem. They just want to seduce you as a voter to believe in what their so-called solution is, when they have no intent. Why? Because of Citizens United and all the other money that's shoveled in through politics. They don't have to. They work for the corporations, and they stopped working for you. And if you stop being blind party followers, then you would get a lot more results out of them making laws for your advantage instead of making laws for the corporations' advantages. You would stop seeing this type of stuff. And as far as the banks, the solution to them, my solution to the banks is you got to get the fucking feds out of it. And if you're not going to get the fucking feds out of it, you got to start making laws that say any money borrowed from the Fed is lockboxed to only American soil. Because all this money that we're borrowing and sending to every 4 months, we're giving $40 and $80 billion to fucking Israel and $40 and $80 billion to fucking Ukraine, so that so that we can pay inflation for it. You're fucking insane, people. No, we're not going to the feds for that. Any money, if we're going to borrow $40, $80 billion from the feds, then all $40 and $80 billion from the feds is going 100% on American soil. If I got to pay the fucking inflation rate to borrow this fucking money, then I damn well better see that money make use to the American society. And that money ain't making use to American society going to fucking Israel. I don't give a shit what you say. Israel has nothing to do with the American prosperity. Israel doesn't do a goddamn thing for American prosperity. Period. They don't give us oil. They don't give us olives, which is a major cash crop over there. They don't give us shit. They don't do shit for us. And the Ashkenazi Jews that go there and come here and have dual citizenship here and there, they got Hollywood and they got all the music industry. They actually are destroying this country too, putting on this trash music and this trash imaging on the television. People, that's what I'm on Soapbox about, man. Dig a little deeper. I know I'm just a dumb nigga, but I do have a lot of questions that I try to answer for myself. And when I start going down the rabbit hole and challenging what's going on in the Matrix, I'm starting to see a lot more. I might not be Neo and I might not be the chosen one, but I can tell you what, I can see what's happening. And I'm not following like a blind leader. I'm not an imbecile, or I'm not a sheep who's on the Republican side pointing my finger and making jokes about Kamala Harris. Because the Democrats and the Republican have both done this to you. And if you can't see that yet, then you are just as bad as the people, and you're just as much as part of the problem. Become independents. Start challenging everything that's going on. Start taking whatever the dumb nigga's telling you and say, you know what, let me research this a little bit more. Wait, these numbers aren't adding up. Oh, that dumb nigga had something to say. He's actually right about something. Whoa, a working class black man actually got a point here. That's all I'm trying to say. Take it as you will. Have a wonderful day and be kind. Turn this country around and turn your society around. Let's move on to something better than this. I don't know if the answer is capitalism, because capitalism and free market aren't really functioning today. There's no real free market and there's no real capitalism. And I will do a post on that and prove how it is and debunk this concept that there is, because there isn't. I don't know what the answer is at this point, but going to a digital currency is a disaster as well. There's a lot we have to do as society, as working class people or people who have any empathy or care for humanity. There's a lot that we have to do if we want to save humanity, because we're on a very, very, very bad trajectory. But I do believe that trajectory can change. I do think that some of the quickest immediate responses, and not just taxing and remaining neutral in politics and demanding answers in politics, and capping and putting guardrails on borrowing from the feds and stipulations and regulations on that. I do believe that we can do some immediate things to delay inevitables, and delay and come up with better, kick the can down the road until we can really turn this shit around. But AI is coming for us, and if we keep fighting amongst ourselves, we're gonna turn around and be so replaced that we'll wipe each other out before the solution gets fit. They have an answer for the solution. They do have an answer for the solution. They just got to get rid of all of us. And I put the middle class, even the people who make $150,000 to $200,000, only a select few of you will get through too. Only a select few of you will get to live in the new world. The rest of us will be fighting amongst ourselves until we wipe each other out and the new world is able to be built. But they've already got the plan for it. So we can debunk all of that and pull us all through. Have a wonderful day and be kind. I hate to be so negative, and it's not always negative, but I really do want to share the information with you so that we can start having, again, I'm just a dumb nigga, but if there's smarter minds out there who can take this information, start challenging it, the right lawyers, the right people challenging it and take it and run with it and really start to address and fix the issues, man, what a wonderful way to go. Be kind.